This is Garis, Masculist MGTOW flyers. That is 2-3 page essays written on the themes of Masculism and MGTOW, written by and read aloud by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. This is flyer number 279, entitled Masculist Riots. Description. This flyer predicts that the first MGTOW/Masculist riot will occur before the end of 2020, as dozens of very angry, frustrated, bitter young men on campus lash out violently against the feminazis, expressing their hatred and intolerance of the increasingly gynocratic society we live in. Flyer itself. Masculist Riots by Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. This flyer states that it is probably only a question of time, probably only a few years, before the first Masculist/MGTOW riot occurs, probably on a university campus, as men collectively express their strong frustration and anger at a suffocating gynocentric society and put their male foot down. Men are getting more collectively angry by the month. Each month, more MGTOW content providers are uploading their videos to the world, teaching men, particularly young men, not to marry, not to have kids, to spend their money on themselves, to avoid fluffy parasites, and especially fluffy feminist hypocrites like the plague. Men are waking up to the fact that the hated feminazis, the fluffy feminist hypocrites, have taken over the divorce courts and have made them so toxic for males that 2/3 of young men under 35 refuse to marry and refuse to have kids, thus directly wiping out whole populations. But since these young men are merely reacting against the toxicity of the divorce courts as controlled by the fluffy feminists, the root cause of the population crash are the fluffy feminists. It is they who are the true genociders. As fluffy feminist genociders, they have to be stopped. More far-sighted men have become alarmed and are pointing the finger at these feminazis and accusing them of being genociders who have to be stopped. But how? As populations seriously start falling, more desperate measures will have to be taken to stop this happening. Otherwise, we wipe ourselves out. Do we use bullets, that is, shoot feminists in the street on the spot the moment they claim they are feminists? Or do we use the male bitch-slapping hand? One or the other, these feminazis have to be stopped. We have no choice in this. The alternative is that whole populations get wiped out. Young men at college are fed up with being treated as second-class citizens, when in reality they are learning from the MGTOW/Masculist movements that men are the superior sex, outperforming women at the top end of the performance scale in almost everything. These men are learning from Masculist videos that men are smarter than women on average by about 4 IQ points, that men have a 10% higher IQ variance than women, that is, that men's IQ scores are more spread out over a whole population, millions of people. So it's not surprising that men have won 99% of the Science Nobel Prizes, so that women have won a pathetic 1%. Men have much higher testosterone levels than women, so are a lot more aggressive, ambitious, dogged, persistent, so are much better at finishing difficult tasks than women, who are more wishy-washy and give up more easily. So men vastly outperform women in just about everything. Men utterly dominate the entries in the Who's Who books that provide the biographies of famous men. The term great man is well known, but the term great woman is almost an oxymoron. That is, two words that are mutually contradictory, for example, skinny, obesity. Yet the feminazis on campus are preaching to the female freshers that women are the superior sex. The intellectually dishonesty of these feminazis really grates with young men who are fed up with this PC, is-sign-it fairy bullshit and are really losing patience with it, getting close to the point of exploding in rage and rioting. So, just how is it likely that this first riot will brew and boil over? I think it's most likely to occur on a campus, because it's on campus where the highest concentration of young men occurs who are fed up with feminazi bullshit and put-downs of men. These young men are fed up with feminazi bitches putting the blame for women's condition entirely on men and not shouldering some of the burden, the responsibility on themselves. This existential cowardice on the part of these feminazi bitches smacks of childishness. Children will blame anyone but themselves for their problems. That is the nature of children. Feminazis behave the same way, and young adult males are fed up with it, and are now a hair's breadth from losing patience and exploding in rage against it. Another reason why I think the first Masculist/MGTOW riot will occur on a campus is because the problem facing men is strongest on campus. Campuses in many Western countries have been taken over by women in several senses. Firstly, purely in sheer numbers. Women now outnumber men almost 2 to 1 on many campuses. Campuses have become so toxic and so unattractive to young men that many have chosen not to go to college and to pick up their qualifications online or in a trade school. Student debt is not worth it, millions of young men feel. What is the point of getting years into debt for a useless piece of diploma paper that the economy does not value? On many campuses now, the feminazis have made it compulsory for men to attend feminazi courses, for example, rape sensitivity, so that men learn how it feels to be a woman fearing being raped on campus. These feminazis claim that 1 woman in 5 will be raped on campus, completely overlooking the fact that the actual rape rate in the population is about 2 rapes per 1,000 adult women per year. See footnote. Thus, these women's studies professors are not only dictating their feminazi agenda onto young men, but far worse, they are lying to them. It's this kind of iscienate, that is, ignorant of science, unable to reason scientifically, fairydom, living in a fairyland, believing things without evidence, just like religionists, that makes young Masculist MGTOW's blood boil. These young men are fed up with this kind of feminazi bullshit and are very angry about it. These young MGTOW/Masculists are very angry at the hypocrisy of the feminazis. For example, there's no paternity rejection right, yet there is a maternity rejection right, so that women have the legal right to reject an unwanted pregnancy, but men don't. So millions of women trick their boyfriends into having to pay for women who wanted to get pregnant, and have a man pay for the kid that he did not want. This kind of criminal injustice and amoral misandry makes MGTOW/Masculists extremely angry, which will just add to the force of the explosion of men when it comes. So, jump just a few years into the future, so that the number of men on campus who are MGTOW/Masculists is large enough for them to have formed quite a substantial men's lib group on campus. That is, enough for them to take action. What might they do? They can boycott the compulsory feminazi classes, complaining to the president of their university that their women's studies professors are liars and misandrists. The young MGTOW/Masculists can also complain to the president that there's no equivalent compulsory courses for young women, for example, anti-fluffy courses, which would teach women to be FIPs, or to be punished by MGTOW/Masculist men who will refuse to have anything to do with them if they don't FIP up. That is, become FIPs, financially independent persons, and not expect to parasite off the money of a man. These young MGTOW/Masculists can also complain to the president that he does not have men's studies courses on his campus, and that this is sexist against men. A more explosive rebellion by the men's group will probably occur by inviting a prominent Masculist to come speak at the university and to give it big publicity, so that probably the feminazi group will organise something to try to counter it, probably by heckling it during the talk. The men's lib group can then warn the feminazi hecklers that if they don't stop heckling, They will be collectively bitch-slapped, very painfully, and thrown out of the room. Such an event would satisfy anyone's definition of a riot, because all hell would break out. Feminazis would be reeling in pain, being bitch-slapped to the floor. Dozens of women would be literally manhandled out of the room and probably punched in the face by very angry men who have first-hand experience of what fluffy feminist feminazi hypocrites do to divorcing fathers, taken from their own lives with their own divorced fathers, with such young men just itching to literally hit back at the hated feminazi bitches, to put them in their place, that is, the inferior sex, because that is the objective, scientifically verified reality. The feminazi denial of this reality merely makes scientifically minded masculist MGTOWs all the angrier, all the more hateful against the insane lies of the feminazi hypocrites. If this bitch-slapping fest occurs, it will inevitably be recorded on dozens of cell phones and uploaded to the video hosters, for example YouTube, minds.com, etc. They will go viral, and some history will have been made. Future social historians will claim that this event was for men what the Stonewall riots were for the gays, that is, when homosexuals went berserk and smashed up police cars, etc. in the year 1969 in Manhattan, New York, after a police raid. These gays were fed up by being put down by a homophobic police force. Men are now fed up by being put down by a misandrist gynocracy. I expect this first pro-male riot will occur before the end of 2020. All that needs for it to occur is that there are enough young men on the campus concerned to form a substantial men's lib group. Sorry, I have a bit of a cold. And that as a group to rebel, to reject compulsory feminazi brainwashing and feminazi PC indoctrination. This group can then organise men's lib, campus-wide activities that the feminazis will be hypocritically opposed to. That is, it's okay for feminazis to complain against men, but not okay for masculists/MGTOWs to complain against women. These feminazis will very probably organise to destroy the campus-wide activity of the masculists. The masculists will then hit back, literally, using the bitch slap as their symbol, creating huge publicity and setting a precedent for the rest of the world, where similar events will then pop up like mushrooms all over the planet as men take heart and put their foot down against feminazi tyranny. If the university authorities then try to take disciplinary action against the organisers of the men's lib group, then its leaders can use the "feminazis are now genociders and have to be stopped" argument. They can appeal to the reason of the male administrators, as well as going to the media with the bitch slap videos and get huge publicity. The slogan, "The feminazis have to be stopped," can become a rallying cry for the masculists across the planet. Given the rate of growth of MGTOW and the growing level of awareness of masculist ideas, I'm betting with myself that the odds are more than 50-50 that this first riot will occur somewhere in the world before the end of 2020. I stick my neck out on this. Cheers. Prof. Dr. Hugo de Garis. Email profhugodegaris@yahoo.com. Website profhugodegaris.wordpress.com. YouTube channels De Garis Masculist MGTOW Flyers and De Garis Essays. Patreon patreon.com/profhugodegaris. minds.com/profhugodegaris. Footnote. According to a March 2013 report from the US Department of Justice's Bureau of Justice Statistics, from 1995 to 2010, the estimated annual rate of female rape or sexual assault declined 58%, from 5 victimizations per 1,000 females aged 12 or older to 2.1, so effectively 2 per 1,000. Website, if you want to look it up, en.wikipedia.org/wiki/rape in the United States, with the words separated by underscores. Ciao.